right, so I'm here with my buddy Mark Cuban, and I'm going to just act like an interviewer, which is not that great because I'm dyslexic. I can barely read, but listen, if you don't know him, you're obviously crazy, because if you know me, you know him, of course. Mark started selling garbage bags at the age of 12, and then fast forward, he created MicroSolutions, computer consulting services, and that he sold to CompuServe in 1990, co-founded broadcast.com. Wait a minute, this is new information to me. So the MicroSolutions was before broadcast.com?
Oh yeah, that's when I was a kid, man. I just gotten fired and had to start something, and started that company, and then ran it for 7 years and sold it. And then 5 years later, I retired, man. I did nothing but trade stocks and travel the world and just have fun. And then we got back together and started the streaming industry.
Oh, damn. I thought you only had one exit. You had two exits. All right,
oh, no, I got more than two. I got more than two. So in between there, I actually started a hedge fund because my trading on my stocks, I was killing it. And then someone bought it from me like 9 months later. So I've had, back before broadcast, I had a couple exits.
I didn't know that. So congratulations. Sorry I'm late on that one. But then you bought the Dallas Mavericks in 2000
Yep.
and in 2006 they competed in their first ever NBA Finals, and in 2011, which thank God I was there. One of the only times that
Showed
I
up
was
at halftime. Showed up at halftime. Didn't even know.
Mark, I mean, the hot dog stand was really long. I mean, the
that
wait
line
on the hot
was
dog,
long, DJ.
2 halves to get a good hot dog. Priorities are priorities, man.
I know, man.
And then obviously became and gifted us with becoming a shark on Shark Tank. You came on for one season, and then you ended up becoming the know-it-all for the rest of the seasons. And tell everybody that thank God you came on, because when Shark Tank is a true startup. It moved from day to day to cast, and when you came on, you were able to bring awareness by going on to other shows and explaining why this was good for entrepreneurship and people in general, to educate them. So thank you for being a fellow cast member. Besides this interview, I will never tell other people that I actually have learned from you. All right. So
vice versa, DJ. Vice versa.
All right, thank you. So you're in my PowerShip book, and the reason I put you in there for various different reasons, but you always say that, and I really want to dispel this, because you always say you're the luckiest guy in the world. And I don't want people to get spoiled by thinking you were the luckiest guy in the world because luck just came out of nowhere. And when you were creating all these type of positionings of yourself and brands, to be able to, now that this is new information, that's why I love walking down these interviews, learning that you had these various different amount of exits, and let's say leading up to the $6 billion exit. Did you know that you were putting these things in play to create an exit or create this thing bigger? Was there a method to your madness?
No, man. It was just like my first company, MicroSolutions, I'd gotten fired. And I was, sleeping on the floor, 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment, literally mustard and ketchup sandwiches. So I had no choice. So there was no method to the madness at all. It was like, I remember talking to one of my guys. He's like, well, you can go on unemployment. I'm like, no, I can't. I got to start a business. And that's what I did. And it just started going, man. I remember going to just talking to as many people as I could and networking, and finally found this one company who offered to put up $500 so that I could buy this piece of software for $250. And I told them if it didn't work, I'd walk your dog, I'd wash your car, I'd sweep your floors, whatever, to make it up to you. But I made it work. And then from there, I just took referrals from them and kept on going. And it turned into a $30 million revenue business that I sold to H&R Block CompuServe for $6 million 7 years later. And then from there, it was like, okay, I got my little nest egg. And because I knew technology, I started trading stocks. And I just killed it. I mean, I was making millions back in the early 90s. And one of my brokers said, you know what, you should do a hedge fund, because I was making 80, 90, 100% a year. And I was like, okay. So we started this hedge fund, and within a year, I sold it. And then from there, I was just like, okay, let's go. And all I did was have fun. But then we started AudioNet in 1995 when the internet was just getting going, and we were pretty much the first to put audio or any media on the internet. And I remember then I knew that had a chance to be big, but it wasn't like I was planning for an exit. This was before even the internet stock market was going nuts. It was more like, okay, you know, in my first company, MicroSolutions, we made money every single month because my expenses were so low, you know. And then the second one we made money, and then this one I was trying to do it the same way, but you know, then the internet stock market took off, and then it got to the point where it wasn't so much thinking about exits. It was more thinking about, okay, how big can we make this thing? Because we think we can be the new type of cable TV. And, you know, but when Yahoo came along and made us an offer we couldn't refuse, we grabbed it. So there wasn't some big master plan.
Right, but you know what? I got it, and maybe you're too close to it because I have rarely been able to exit from any of my companies. A lot of people think I sold Fubo when I didn't. I sold a very portion of it to I sold the territories of China.
I didn't know that.
Philippines, else, right? But to have 2 and 3 exits, and we get people on the show all the time or in person. Yeah, I'm going to get this company, then I'm going to sell it. And I don't see often a lot of exits. Is this the exits because they were more tech exits? I mean, one was a hedge fund. But is it that the exits were easier because that's how tech is really the kind of business where you are absorbing as many as you can to have so many more tentacles or tools? Or is it that, you know, you just set it up well enough to be able to present it to somebody well enough? Because sometimes on the show, you know, you ask the question, how are your records being kept? How is this and that? Because people come with a bucket of stuff.
Like,
yeah. Right? So is there advice that you can give people on prepping themselves accordingly?
I didn't plan for exits in any of them. What really made it work for me was the industries I was in, I was usually the first. Like when I started the first one, after I got fired, I started saying, okay, I'm going to figure out how to connect these PCs together. And that was back in the day when people didn't connect into local area networks, something that seems normal now, right? So we were doing what's called systems integration, but we were the first, and we were one of the largest in the country to do it for our niche. And so that's why someone was interested in buying us. When I did the hedge fund, again, it was like I knew technology stocks, and we were doing so well that it gave someone was actually able to buy my track record, and that's why they bought us. And then the third one with AudioNet, we were the first to do streaming, you know? Right. And so we saw streaming as the future of media. And when Yahoo wanted to get into that, I mean, we were Pandora, Spotify, YouTube, all rolled into one. And so, you know, it was, the exits came because we were the first to do something, one of the biggest, if not the biggest to do it, and bigger companies who wanted that skill set acquired us. Now for other folks, you know, getting acquired isn't just about scale, but it's about having an edge. It's about having something that differentiates you. It may be trademarks. It may be, you know, some skill. It may be a product that you have that's unique, but you're going to have something that that big company can't just create for themselves or buy somewhere else.
Now, looking back 20 years ago, if you can go back in time now with all the more life and negotiation experiences that you've had now, if you were back in that room with Yahoo, with all the things you know now, do you think it would have been a different outcome, good, bad, or indifferent?
No, because the thing about negotiating a good deal, you don't have to get everything. You say this all the time, right?
Right.
I mean, you know, when you have a deal, usually both sides don't think they got everything they wanted, and that's okay. And that's the way it was. Neither one of us got everything we wanted, but I wasn't going to get greedy, because once you try to get everything out of a deal, that's when deals fall apart.
No, I totally agree on that. So, all right, we're going to pivot now to kind of what's going on today. Like, what would you say to a person right now that's thinking about making a power shift in their life right now?
Be careful. Yeah, really know what you're doing, because the world's changing. Business is changing. You know, I don't know what it's going to look like in America 2.0 on the other side of this stuff, right? And so maybe you have a good feel. If you have a vision for it and you want to make that power move to go out there and go to this new place, or you think this is something special that's going on, okay, but make sure you know what you're doing, because, you know, there's, as of this morning, there were 36 million people out of work, probably another 20 million underemployed. Yeah. So you got to be careful. And the other thing I would say, particularly the younger you are, there's no such thing as a career anymore. everybody's a free agent, and you can work for a year, learn a lot, make some money, and then use that to grow and get smarter, and then figure out what your next move is. If you're older and you're trying to make that power move, just be careful.
And how long do you be careful? Because I think I heard you say one time something like, if you don't know what to do, then don't do anything at all at the moment.
Yeah.
Something like that. I'm not sure if it was the market or something like that.
Yeah, it was the markets, but it applies to a career too.
Like, how long you say being careful now? You and I are firm believers that people should stay inside if they can and protect themselves. And, I was talking to my wife. We were, of course, having anxiety like everybody else with our child running around and stuff like that. And I said, I'm not a young, I'm not young and active anymore like I should be. And do you ever want our child to turn around at our graveyard and say, my mother and dad just didn't want to stay home for a year?
Yeah, that's a great line, man. That's a great line, DJ.
Mark, I mean, we're not living in bad circumstances, and I'm not talking about the people out there in the world that need to go to work to make a living and they're on the front lines. But how long do you stay in that, in that position and not do anything? Like, you know what I mean? Because it's
tough
to make that move,
Yeah, it's tough. Like, like you said, what did they say yesterday? 40% of people making $40,000 or less are unemployed right now. And that's brutal, And so if you got to come up with something to pay your bills, first check out all the government programs, right? Because there's unemployment, there's all kind of other government programs available, local programs. You paid your taxes. This is the time to get your money back, right? This is the time to make use of it. That's number one. If you're into starting businesses, you got to be agile, right? Because business hasn't closed. Just how we do business, how we buy things, and where we buy things has changed, right? Because there's nothing, you can't go out to dinner. Yeah, you can't go out, maybe get your hair cut, obviously. But at the same time, you can buy almost anything else. Yeah, right? You can buy, what can't you buy? And so I think a lot of things are transitioning to all online, so that if you have a way to sell something and you can do it online and deliver it, there's going to be a ton of great businesses that are created right now as people innovate and are agile and come up with ways to sell and support folks who are staying at home.
And I think you touched on a couple of different important issues. I mean, how many people are doing their research and going out? And this is why we paid taxes for many, many years, and we pay taxes. And you have the PPP programs out there. You have, I think there's emergency funding and stuff like that. But let me ask some business owners. I know that you're going to hold your staff, and I've been holding my staff now since it's happened. And a lot of my companies have taken PPP. And I've advised them that some people are going to get backlash for taking PPP, but some people aren't. I said to all the founders, if you can afford to not take it personally, because that will help other people, but you've been paying taxes all the time. Your team has been paying taxes. You can help your team for 2 months. Don't take it personally, but give it to your team and give yours back, right? Do you think that is a good position, or should they say, no, you know what? Why have I been paying taxes for 20 or 30 years like this? It's a loan. If I do better, I'll give it later. But isn't this why I pay a crap load of money? Like, what do you say is the positioning that people should think about?
So a couple of things there, DJ. Number one, you got to look at the rules of the PPP program. It's only available to you if you've been negatively impacted by the pandemic. And so if your business is up, like I got a couple of business, like Dude Wipes, right, from Shark Tank. They're crushing it. When people couldn't get toilet paper, they bought Dude Wipes. Their business is through the roof. I make sure they did not take PPP. They knew they couldn't take PPP. I've had other businesses that just have gotten crushed. For them, absolutely take it. If you're on the fence, okay, again, if the pandemic has negatively impacted your business, you deserve it. You paid your taxes. But if it hasn't, or you're still doing the same amount of business as before, you can't. You'll get in trouble. Now, all that said, there's still businesses that haven't applied yet. And there's still money, as what's the date today, the 14th? Yeah, as of May 14th, there's still $100 billion left in the PPP program. So if you are eligible, you should be applying. Absolutely positively. And if you're having a problem with your bank, maybe it's too big and they see you as a small fish, go to a local community bank. They can just walk through the application. And so I've sent people to little tiny banks that, have 30 people working there, and, they had them approved within 3 hours. So if you have a little community bank and you think you're eligible for PPP, go for it. And like you said, there's other programs too. There's EIDL from the SBA. There's the IRS tax credits. Those things, if you're eligible, there's no restrictions. Just go, right? Particularly the IRS tax credit, because if you keep people on the payroll, I think it's up to $10,000. Why wouldn't you grab it?
Right. No, I think that's a good point. I think the point that I did recognize this, and I haven't shared it with people because I just totally forgot, but I think you did bring up a vital point. A lot of the big banks have a lot of big customers, but these small local community banks are, first of all, they have a list of how much is allocated to them. They would love the new business and seeing you as a potential new customer. It's helping the local people that are in the community. So I think that's a great point. So I'm just gonna go back to some of the stuff that's I think more fun and that I get to hear you talk about.
Sure.
And I want to learn
Let's
from
go.
as well. So as a negotiator and a business person in the tech world or the business world, how did you apply that, or is it the same when you're talking to a new player or your current players? Because that's and I know the only thing that's more important than the number is the person, but is there a different way of negotiating when talking to players? Now, remember, players are at the top of their game. They're young. They're influenced by a lot of different things in the world. Maybe.
Yeah, there's a big difference, Damon. There's a huge difference because there's a thing called the collective bargaining agreement through their union. And so there's a very strict number of rules on how much we can pay, how many players we have on the team, what the minimum, maximum salaries are. And then there's also 29 teams that may be competing for their services. And it's rare that you run into a situation where you've got, a bunch of other companies with a bunch of money competing to hire the same person. And so it makes it a lot different than negotiating a regular deal. Because usually if you're negotiating something, you've gotten to the point where two parties agree that, okay, we want to do a deal. It's just a question of figuring out how to do it. And eventually you get that with the player. They're like, okay, I want to play for you. I know how much cap room you have under the salary cap. You're my favorite. So let's see if we can work this out. And 90% of the time, those deals work out with players. 10% of the time, another team swoops in.
How much have you seen the parents and the homie and the whatever be beneficial to the deal or negative to the deal? Because I know that a lot of times they come with the people who raised them or groomed them. How many times have you seen them, be one way or the other in the deal?
100% of the time. I mean, family is really important to kids. I mean, these kids are 19, 20, 21 years old. So families are still an important part of their lives, and how they're influenced by their families, or just people that they've worked with their entire life. It may be a coach, it may be a runner, somebody who's just been there in their lives. And so that's always important. So you're typically not just selling the kid, but you're selling the kid and his agent and their families to make them feel comfortable. Why are you going to like Dallas over this other city? Why is it better to come here? What's different about it? And then it's even other things. It's like, okay, Dallas is a tax-free state, but property taxes are higher than other cities, so how does that all balance out?
So something I learned from you is speaking. Sorry about that question here that I think a lot of people can learn from. Before I knew you, I knew of you, of course, and you were and are a pop culture kind of guy. People know Mark Cuban, with the billionaire, but they also knew of or heard of you throwing chairs on the court and being. And I don't even know if you ever did that, but the story got bigger and bigger and bigger. You threw a chair, then you threw a person, and then you threw, story. And I know that earlier on in your career, you're very passionate about your team, and you're right down there, and you show that you're willing to do whatever needs to be done. But earlier in your career as a NBA owner, you got a bad rap as far as I'm concerned. But knowing you now, but I think I talked to you about that, and you said, well, you came in there as an owner and you said, I can do what I want. It's my team. And then you learned that you were more of kids are looking up to you and things like that. But tell me that story, because it shows people how your reputation, your influence can go on negatively, positively, but also you got to work on it and adjust to it,
Sure.
when you understand the responsibility at hand.
So when I bought the team, everybody's like, you got to act like all the other owners. And I was like, why would I do that? I mean, the way I've run companies has worked for me. I've started 2 companies prior to that, 3 companies, and I've built them. They've all been successful, and I sold them all. So why wouldn't I use the same skill set to run the Mavericks? And that's what I did, and it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Particularly a lot of people, not just other owners, but, in the sports world, there's a lot of close connections between ownership, management, and media. And so the media would just crush me all the time. So that was one part of it, and I just didn't care on that part. But to your point, like, for whatever reason, like, me, DJ, I'm mellow, right? You don't see me get all fired up, and you don't see me yelling and screaming. I don't get mad at anybody. But you put me in the middle of a game, for whatever reason, I'm screaming and yelling. That's the one place where I let it all out, and where I get really passionate and emotional. And I guess that's my release. But at the beginning, I would curse at the refs, and then I would find out there'd be kids all around me, and then it got me upset that I was cursing, just firing away. And these kids, I would have these parents walk up to me, you can't curse. And I'm like, damn it. But you learn, right? And so I figured out real quickly that, I'm still going to yell. That's just the way I am. That's my one place to get out my aggression. But I stopped cursing. There'd be times when I'm about to yell something I shouldn't. And now I catch myself. And probably, I've owned the team now for 20 years. For probably the last 17 years, I've been good at that. But, like you said, some stories get blown out of proportion, and everybody's got a story to tell, and it doesn't matter if it's true or not.
Well, what I took from that when you had that conversation with me is that you did say that kids are looking up to you, and you're representing the city and the town, and
exactly right.
You have a bigger obligation that you are glad to take on, and that has built you to be even a better pop culture figure.
And to your point, I learned quickly, sometimes the hard way, that sports is so bigger than I ever imagined, and kids do look up to you, kids do look up to the players, and no one's perfect, and fans don't expect you to be perfect. But when you have a chance to be nice, when you have a chance to do the right thing, when you have a chance to be supportive, when you have the chance to do something in the community, when you have a chance to help people in the hospitals or the frontline workers now, a sports team is a great way to do it. And I had to recognize that if I was going to fit into that and people wanted me to help them, right? If I was going to be a jerk, people wouldn't want me to help them, that I would have to adjust and recognize that, there were kids always watching, and how I carried myself, particularly not just during the game, but particularly outside of the games, that was very important, because I had to be able to connect and relate if I was going to help people.
All right, I got one last question for you. Hey, you want to say hello to Uncle Mark? Say hi to Uncle Mark.
What up, Mika? Hi, sweetie.
I got one last question. Is there any other power shift you're making today? I know that you've been getting extremely fit, so that's a power shift, taking care of your health way before this, pandemic came around. But what other power shift you're making today, if any?
Yeah, I'm trying to help in the community. One of my friends said to me, none of us can be heroes unless we're all heroes. This only works unless we all protect each other. And so I'm trying to just be out there and help the first responders, help healthcare workers, help people in the community, help local businesses, just because, this is a struggle for everybody, and we're really blessed in our ability to help people. And so that's really been my focus, helping small businesses and help people who need help.
All right. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you for being an inspiration. Thank you for educating all of us and just being very transparent with all the things you do, man. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your family, and hope you're safe.
Hey, I just got to say one thing. Chocolate Thunder. Mika, do you call your daddy Chocolate Thunder?
Call me Chocolate Thunder? No, neither does her mother.
All right, love you, my brother.
Take
care. See you, Mika.